In 2007, I built a homemade wall of death and rode it on a moped, in what was the first proper build project on this channel. This coliseum of pallets and scrap wood sounded like it was falling apart on the first ride. And of course I had a crash. Then it all clicked and I was off. But after 10 years of standing out in a field, the elements had took its toll. The entry ramp had half collapsed, and climbing it wasn't much safer. Once on top, you could really see how much disrepair the wall was in. Even though it was full of nettles and weeds, I had one last job for it. Drift trikes. I have made lots of these amazing machines. I've made a petrol one, awesome. I've made an electric one. Fantastic. I've even made ones with spherical wheels that you can slide across grass on. But I've never ridden one on a wall of death. Despite the sketchy terrain, I gave it my best shot. But with the drift trike having no suspension, it was just too bumpy. The more I tried, the more the wall fell apart beneath me. So with the wall of death too old and too dilapidated, I never did get to ride a drift trike on a wall of death. And now, nearly another 10 years later, I've still got my drift trikes. Just need a wall of death. So then, Colin, what's the plan? So, I'm going to construct a new wall of death inside the barn. Now, it can't be as tall as the original due to the ceiling height, but I think we've got enough space to fit the 30-foot diameter beast inside the roof, so we can spin round and do exactly what we need to. However, other than the height and the width, it needs to be smooth, which is exactly what the old one wasn't. So we're going to make a big steel cylindrical skeleton and then clad it with plywood, and hopefully that will be smooth enough so I can get the drift trike on it. Right, if we're going to make a big steel round skeleton, we're going to have to bend some metal. We're going to need a bender. So I've got this bender from AMOD, but the manual capacity to this is 40mm. So I've made some extra spacers, so it does 50mm, but does it do 50mm? Well, let's put a bend on it. It's actually been successful. It has done it. It growls a bit, but I think we're there. Now this isn't the full length of steel, so to do a full length of steel, rather than it going bending and going up into the sky, it's better if we lay this flat so it comes out and goes across like that. Now when this machine was new, it did used to be able to tilt the head over so you could do exactly the process that we want now. But when it was back at home, it was too heavy and cumbersome, so I chopped it down and put wheels on it, and for some reason I got rid of that hinge. So, rather than tilting the head, we're going to have to tilt the whole thing 90 degrees. I better pulling this out of the blooming camera shot. Excellent camera shot, Colin. Yes! Life was simple. Back in the day, the money era was the only reason you had to pay. Easy living, enjoy it, home, and then okay, really happy with how that's bent. I've chopped it in half, laid the two sides on top of each other, and they are dead exactly the same. Now, big picture, basically one length of steel wants to make one panel of frame. And essentially the two sides, which will stick up the end, I cut off the end before I did this. So we've got them two bits, chopped off the 7.5 metre length, which left this bit, which we've bent, and now I've chopped in half to make the two top bits. So with my steel cut to length and bent, it's now time to set up the fabrication table to turn myself into a wall of death section factory. Fabrication tables. Siegman, you beauts. With the fabrication table set up, it was time to cut up more steel to create more sections to make more. Just more, Colin. Now, as you can see, this is extremely tiring work, which means you need a good night's sleep. Brings me very kindly onto our sponsor. Do you ever get so hot at night that you can't sleep? Then you need an 8 sleep. This great piece of tech goes over your mattress like a sheet and brings temperature regulation and control to your sleep. And once you've used it, you'll never look back. Now, for the most part, living in the UK, controlling bed temperature is probably about warming it up. But even throughout the winter, I am someone who gets hot at night. So I kind of thought with the release of the new Pod 4, I would take my 8 Sleep mattress topper to somewhere more extreme and properly test it. So here I am, just a stone's throw away from the equator. And it is hot. It is really hot. So, set up on the bed, it's test time. Okay, so it's like 35 degrees here at the moment, but it's not just 35 degrees in the day, it is 35 degrees at night. Now, I've checked the bed temperature without the 8 Sleep on it, and it is about 27 degrees. So now, let's switch it on, because this new Pod 4 can go even cooler than the previous one. And as you can see from the thermal imaging camera, this is looking nice. I've got to get in and test this. That is like the cold side of a pillow, but everywhere. Now, this is not just about making your bed hot or cold, this is about temperature regulation, and taking this thing to the tropics really proved how amazing it is. I was there a few nights and I tried various different scenarios, with the air conditioning on, with it off, with doors open, doors closed, and with the 8 Sleep on and the 8 Sleep off, and every time it proved to be an absolute benefit in a comfortable night's sleep. Now, as well as the new Pod 4 having a much denser thermal grid, it's also got this little feature on the side where there's a little raised bit which you can feel through your bed sheet. If you double tap it, it makes it cool, and if you triple tap it, it brings the temperature up, and it saves having to get your phone out and go into the app if you want to make a small adjustment in the night. So visit 8sleep.com/Colin to get $350 off the Pod 4 Ultra and revolutionise your sleep. Right then, back to this wall of death. Okie dokie. Right, that's 6 sections done. There's 22 in total. But before we go making the rest of them, let's see if these are okay. I've made 4 legs. Let's get them all bolted up. Have a look, see what it's like. And if there is any issues, obviously we can change it. And then, of course, we can look at how I'm going to do the transition bit at the bottom. Once I know all that, I can order all the rest of the steel to get it all done. And then we can just get on and make it. So one of my first problems is, where do I start building this thing? Because it's going to take up the whole of the barn at some point, so it is definitely going to be in the way. I don't bloody know. Then, just like the original, the walls started to take shape. Okay, people, I'm happy with this. I think this is going to be a complete circle. There's a couple of little issues. The holes don't always line up. Clearly, I'm not very good at marking as what I thought I was. So I've been getting a long drill bit and trying to drill it all through, which does work, but there is a better option. HMT make these little tapered reamers, which go in impact guns. Just put one of them in, sorts all the problems out. The other issue it will have is if we build it all as a frame first, and then we go to put the ply on, the bottom row will be fine because we can get a clamp top and bottom, but we can't do that on the top one because the bottom one will be plied and then you can't get the bottom clamp round. If he doesn't understand that, don't worry about it. It's an issue. I've been thinking about it. So what I think, we'll take this down, we'll get it all painted, we'll make all the other bends, and then we'll put it all together. I'm going for it. So with more sections made and looking good, this time I made myself a little jig to drill the holes, so hopefully they line up a little bit better this time. Then Charlotte painted the sections in preparation to be boarded. Next up is to find out the best way of holding the ply in position while fixing it to the frame. So first off, it's up to the laser cutter to make a jig for drilling the holes in the plywood. Then place the plywood on the floor, place the jig on top and drill the holes. Mount the frame up against the posts, put the ply up against the frame and slide up against the end stop. Then a bit of pull up and clampy and push up and pinny and tightly twisty, which pushes the board up to the end stop and pushes it into the curve and takes up all the gaps. Then pilot drill, tap a thread and fix it in place. And repeat 22 times. You see all that? That was a lot of work, that was. Took a long time. Right, let's bolt it up and see if it forms a circle. Now, in true Furze style, I'd stacked everything where I needed to be working. So I got that shifted, but that was going to be the least of my problems, even though it did start to look quite good. Now, to lift the top ones on, I made a winch, and this didn't play ball immediately. No, I didn't want that. Now, what you're witnessing in this shot is a real-life puzzle conundrum. No. I know this is looking good, people, but we've got a whole list of issues which I just can't go on without sorting out anymore. Basically, this is too complicated. There's too many separate bits. They're too heavy. They're too hard to get into position. The top ones, yes, I've made a wonderful winch thing and you pull it up, but you can't push the top sections in from the front. They have to come in the back, and then the bits of wood are in the way, so you have to cut them off. That's not ideal because then you've got bits of wood missing. No! So what I've done, you get the two sections, you lay them on the floor, you get two thinner legs, you bolt them in, so the whole thing is one panel, which of course you can't lift as a human being, which means I've made an adapter for the JCB so it can slide up underneath it, pick it up, mount it, twist it, and put it where you want. I'd say that, my little booties, is a win. So now I need to do that 11 times, which means I've got to pull this to bits. Ah! Oh, this was a much better system, which led me to ask questions. Can I lift two sections at once? If I told you you were dreaming, why would you put that down as a can do? I had a smile on my face. It was going so well. And then I knocked it over.
Okay, that's not quite what I wanted to happen, is it? Punched a hole in it with a light. Ah.
So after correcting this small mistake, we were back on it, and very quickly, the circle became a full circle. Every other second someone always has to mention how they think I should be acting, but I don't remember asking cause I don't care when you make a sound, think about it, something wants to make the choice and take the consequence. Situation is untenable, I wish that I could save the world, I'll give it my best shot, but I have a hard enough time maintaining what I've got. Oh, we've got a circle! That was way easier to put together. Now, it's very good, but at the moment we've essentially got this. We've got like a little weak cylinder, because if you give it a good shake, you can see the whole thing wobbling around. So what we need to do a bit of ribbing, people. Yes, by that, I mean we need to put like a bit of a lip round the top of it, give it an angle, stiffen it all up, and this will also double up as a guard, so if anything goes wrong, I can't shoot out off the top. Right, rimming. Turns out, after a successful bit of rimming, things have stiffened up. Ooh. Right, transition next. Okay, original Wall of Deaths have a 45-degree bank made out of planks. And I tried this, doesn't look too bad. There's a couple of complications. The planks have to be bigger at the top than what they are at the bottom, because as well as going down at 45 degrees, you're also getting closer to the middle of the circle. So it all has to get a little bit smaller. But there's an issue. If I'm on the wall and I slide off and hit this, that's a bit of a, you know, like a shelf, that's gonna flick me off. So I'm thinking we want something a little bit more gradual, a bit like a skate park bowl. So after 2 days of messing around, we've got this. It's not perfect, but I think it'll do the job. It's a nice gradual curve up to the wall and a nice gradual curve off the wall, perfect for a trike. Now the thing that's took me all the messing around is the brackets, getting the cones the right shape and length. I've messed around with a bit. We've had rubbish flimsy ones. We've now got these ridiculously complicated things that have to go on the fabrication table, but it doesn't matter. It's not your problem. I'll deal with that. Let's just get on with it. So using a template to mark the sections, I jigsawed out the plywood. I then set the fabrication table up as a small leg factory, and then press braked all the foot plates. But with this many things plasma cut out, small ideas can save you a lot of time. I've kind of made a budget super finishing machine. So basically when you plasma cut bits, you end up with these little snotty bits on the edge. I mean, they come off easy, you can knock them off with a file, or you can just grind them off. But when you've got this many bits to do, that is a lot of work. So all I've done is filled a cement mixer with a load of gravel and these bits, chucked them in. After about half an hour of tumbling around, it's all gone. They're super smooth. So with my system then kind of sorted, it's then just repeat 11 times, and then we should have a wall of death. Okay, this thing is big. As you can see, it takes up the whole barn. How cool is this? Now, I apologise if the sound is a little weird. I'm stood dead in the centre and I can hear my own voice bouncing off the walls around me. Okay, scary bit now. Got to test it. Now, if you're wondering how you get in here, there is a little doorway or a wedge of cheese which you just pull out the way and you pull back in, and then somebody on the other side will put a little bolt down to stop it from obviously sliding out while I'm going around it. Right, let's have a crack. This was the bit of the idea I didn't think about when I come up with this, is I do actually have to ride this. Yes. My drift trike of choice is my electric one. It's lighter, has near instant torque, and of course we're inside, so we're not going to fill the place up with petrol fumes. Okay, Charlotte's outside. She's got the horn. If anything starts to move or the structure looks like it's going to be compromised. Right, let's have a little tickle round and try and flex the Wall of Death skills muscles which I had all those 17 years ago, whatever it was. So I set off to relearn a skill from my past, and it became quite obvious quite quickly that this was going to be a different experience and a different ride to the moped. Well, drifting's not going to be a problem. It's not drifting that's going to be the problem. Back at it with the trike sliding and fishtailing all over the place. If only lack of traction was my only problem. Oh, there's that dizziness. You need to look at the right place ahead of you. Too close you get dizzy, too far away you get dizzy. Right, I think gently build up speed and then just gently get higher and higher. That seems way faster than I ever did the other one. Although this extra speed was allowing me to go slightly higher up the wall, it was too fast for my mind to cope, and it was still slipping. So I sat there with my head in my hands thinking, have I built all of this for nothing? Is this the wrong vehicle for this? But then I thought, wow, if I haven't got any grip, why don't we take the drift sleeves off altogether? But then I was quickly reminded of past tests of this. If you've got no drift sleeves and no differential, you got no steering. But then I thought of another idea. Okay, this is my thinking. I've took one drift sleeve off. With two drift sleeves, not enough grip. I'm having to try and go too fast. That's no good. So I've took the lower one off, which I think is the one that's going to give us most grip to get us up on the wall. And then we'll see after that, okay? Now, although steering was still tricky, things were starting to feel a bit better. I could go slightly slower, which was helping me process what was happening, and I wasn't sliding down as much. Now you see that? That's the face of somebody who might be starting to think this is working. I was up, only briefly, but the whole trike was on the vertical. That felt more like it. Before, I was going way too quick. Information overload, all I can see is plywood, 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 plywood. Slowly, I started to get the feel back for it, going a little bit higher or staying on the wall for a little bit longer, but then every now and again, it'd bite you. Time for a tea break. Now, I was starting to feel really dizzy and quite sick, but I thought I want to have one more go before I pack it in today. Okay, this is a project where you have to do a bit, stop, process it, think about what's happened, look at the footage, and then decide what's going right, what's going wrong. And one of the things that I'm kind of struggling with the trike is where to lean. If I lean too far forward, the back end starts to get a bit light, and then it slides around even more. If I lean too far back, then the steering gets really light, and then that doesn't feel very good. Ugh. Feeling like I'd finally cracked what speed I needed to go, there was just something wrong about this run. The steering just didn't feel right. It was erratic, and then on looking back at the footage, I could see why. My drift sleeve kept sliding on and off. So we've actually got two problems here. Not only have the sleeves been sliding off, but they're actually split and cracked. So I've had to swap that over. And then also, the wall is taking a bit of a bashing. We've got splits appearing all over the place. So I've made some brackets and gone around all the joints and strengthened them up. So everything's fixed. We've got a new sleeve on. We've got brackets and braces round the wall. It was smooth. And oh, it started to come to me. And then, disaster! My remaining drift sleeve blew apart mid-ride. But this wasn't my main problem. In a haste to slow down as quickly as possible, I took my foot off the peg, but this resulted in it bouncing onto the wall and getting dragged into the back wheel. Ouch! That's broken another drift sleeve and my foot. Time for another tea break. Oh dear, Colin. Nah, I'm joking. I don't need credit. Although I do have a limp. Now, it wasn't a crash as such, but I have hurt my foot. If I take my shoe off, so as you can see, it's a bit swollen and it's probably going to bruise a lot more over the next few days. But in between this getting better, what do we need to look at? Well, I'm a pair of shoes down. My etnies a bust, but it's all right. I'm good for them. Now, I've been looking at the footage because I kind of want to know why do my drift sleeves keep exploding and splitting, because this really shouldn't put that much stress on them. And then I saw it in the footage. Basically, it blew up when I hit one of the joins in the panels. And if I slow down some of the other bits of footage where I cross the panels, you can see that they're moving. Basically, the weight of me going round, it's a little bit like a brick in a washing machine. It's kind of pushing the panels out, and then I'm making tiny little ledges. So we need to fix them together in the middle rather than just top and bottom. So get rid of that flex, get rid of that little step, and hopefully we won't break any more. So while my foot heals, I'm laying on the floor, bending up brackets and then fixing them in place. I then climb a ladder one-footed to put up some fairground lights, which look very nice. Coming down the ladder is just as hard. I then add the compulsory wall sign, and because this is a wall, and I am a Game of Thrones fan, I've added lots of quotes from the TV series and its own three-eyed raven, poking through the gap made by the light. And last of all, we've got a new FURZE Customs logo to celebrate 2 new limited edition tees on the colinfurze shop. With my foot back in action, it's time to defeat the wall. And what do we say to the god of death? Not today!
Lifetime sentence!
Then, after a few nervous attempts which saw me go higher than I've ever been before, I even ran over the three-eyed raven. Why do you think I come all this way? All that was left to do was to fine-tune my weight distribution, because at times the steering was so light it just felt like it was bouncing along the wall. This is not a nice feeling. But then it all just clicked. Then, all of a sudden, with my weight distribution in the perfect place, that little natural urge to go back down the wall had disappeared, and I was just there, sticking to it. It all just seemed so much smoother, without going up and down all the time. Everything just seemed to go straight. It even felt like I wasn't going as fast. This was a huge relief. Yes, I haven't built this thing for nothing. I was very happy. Yes, I can still do it! Oh, that feels good. This is what this channel is about. Like, building stuff which takes you way out your comfort zone, whether that be blooming jet bikes, digging under your house foundations, or riding this beast. But I know what you're thinking, and I'm thinking it too. Can I drift on the Wall of Death? Okay, I've had a few very small drifts already. We've kind of caught them as I've been learning to do this, where basically the back end's gone a bit light and it's dropped down and then quickly picked itself back up again. Now, they're tiny ones, but I think really we want it to be a little bit more severe than that. And of course I've got to make it do it rather than it do it by accident. So I set off trying to work out in my head how I was going to get this to happen. Initially, I tried tugging on the handlebars and sort of pushing on the seat to try and get it to induce the drift. I then went a bit higher and tried to steer it into it. Then everything briefly hit the sweet spot and I felt the back end drop down and me counter steer into the drift. Although only short, I felt this was possible.
Not a bad effort, darling! Not a bad effort!
So what I'm actually doing here is trying to get as close to crashing as possible, but not crashing.
For a first attempt, I think I got a little bit of one in then.
Right, come on. Come on, this is it. No messing about now. And using a slight bounce from sending the trike from the transition to the flat, I got it into a drift. And it turns out the secret, you gotta pull a funny face. So with my drift face engaged, time for one more go. There I was, proper drifting round a wall of death. And then I nearly crashed.
I'm going to look at the footage, but I might take that as done.
Colin, I think you can take that as done. And there we are, a drift trike on a wall of death. Now, this feels so much different to the original one. It is a separate project. It's why I've not sprayed Stanford Cowboys on the side of it. It's why I've not used the original Wall of Death song. They do feel like completely different projects. Now, if you want to know what happened to the original one, it actually ended up getting burnt in the end because it was so dilapidated and falling to bits. If anybody just stumbled across it, climbed up it, fell in it, got stuck in it, you name it, so it had to go. Now, of course, this has took me ages to make. I do apologise. This video should have gone out over a month ago, so thank you, 8 Sleep, the sponsor of this video, for actually being very patient with me. If you are interested in improving your sleep, go and click on the link. They have been absolute saints in waiting for me to get this finished. Because where should I be, Colin? You should be digging an underground garage. Yes, that is what I'm going to get straight back onto as soon as this video goes out. And if this isn't worth a subscription, I don't know what is. Building a wall of death, whacking a drift trike on it, sums up the colinfurze channel a treat.